Okay. So my name is Adrian Bolboaca. I'm a programmer, trainer, and coach. I won't have slides today. I just said I won't do slides anymore. So I'll just write on these 2 flip charts some of the ideas I'll present to you. The topic for today, for my talk, is deliberate practice. So this is a thing that I really care about. It's the way I learn, typically, the way I teach others often. Have you ever heard about this? No? Claudia has. Okay. one person heard about this. The idea of deliberate practice is to have a session, to put yourself in this condition where you can learn. Okay? So basically, there are, let's say, in our world, there are 3 types of activities. When you're a child, you play. Then you do work. When you're an adult. But these 2 things lack, in my point of view, the part with practice. Now, you can practice if someone forces you to do that, or if you can practice because you want to do that. And when you want to do that, that is deliberate. It's very interesting that deliberate practice comes a lot from this idea of play, but also it affects how you do work. Because deliberate practice is structured in a way like play, but if you do that, you will become more efficient in your work. So, as a definition, the deliberate practice would be something like practice on purpose with the willingness to learn. That's what you want to do. And of course, my first question when I always hear something is, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to practice something? And my answer for this is because in the world where we are, in the software industry, we always need to increase our knowledge. Because if we do something like this with our knowledge, so don't learn anything, basically this means that I'm staying behind. Because others, okay, learn more. And I can tell you from my experience that this is the case typically, that people tend to want to learn a lot in software development because we do a lot of things, we invent a lot of things are moving, are changing. So if you just do the same old thing, you stay behind. How can you learn? This is where deliberate practice comes into place. And the concept is that the concept comes from the idea that if you are natively good at something, you'd say, okay, I'm good at this. So that's great. I don't need to do much. But studies have shown that if you practice and you aren't natively good at that thing, you become better. So it's not enough just to be good at sports, photography, software, anything. You require practice. So there, typically we say, oh, that person is very good because they have these skills. They are native. Not really. In fact, most of the tennis players, athletes, software developers that are very, very good do this. So I would say that it is important to focus on practice, even if you're good at something. Now, this thing with play, where does this come from? When you're a child, you do some things. What do? You draw, you sing. What else?
Role playing.
So role playing. What else did you do as a child? Play with fire? Okay. Something else? Sorry?
Building.
Build things, exactly.
Break stuff.
Build things.
And don't forget crying.
Right, okay. Yeah, crying is different, yes.
It's something they do.
Yeah, but it's not related to play.
I'm just kidding.
But it is very important, it is very interesting in the psychology of children. What else do you remember doing as a child?
Break stuff.
Break stuff, great. You need to do that. And then, okay, you become an adult, you come to work, and people tell you don't break things anymore. So, how can you learn that? Because basically, this thing, breaking stuff, will make you better. Because you understood how you can improve these things you've done by breaking them. When I was a child, I really loved electronics. And I think I broke something like 3 or 4 radios until I got to fix them. And then when I was maybe 14 or 15, I could fix any radio. But I needed to break those, okay? Now, if you're at work and you break 3 or 4 projects, I don't know, probably you'll get fired, right? So, well, it depends where you work, of course. If you work at the government, that's something else. Probably you'll be better. Much bigger salary. So, this is why the idea of deliberate practice is to have these opportunities to break things. And I will tell you about some ideas of deliberate practice. And I wrote them down not to forget. In Agile, we typically do stuff like Agile games. And I'm writing them here. Maybe you want to take a picture and then you'd like to try them out. I don't have a good memory about Agile games. So the penny game, have you heard about this? No? No? Try it out. Sorry?
The pen, the same thing with press the pen.
It's the same idea, it's not the same game. This is for flow. To show how it's better to try having a flow and to observe bottlenecks in an environment where you have programmers who don't finish their work in a sprint and then they pass it to the testers and then the testers go back and so on. So if you try to simulate some things like that with pennies and you flip pennies, you'll see very fast how you can improve a flow. And it's very simple. It takes you maybe half an hour, maybe 1 hour. Okay? Another one, it's called bottleneck. Or the long name is I am a free man, I'm not a bottleneck. And this is an even better simulation of a software project where you have artists, rows. Someone needs to draw stuff, someone needs to cut some paper, someone needs to fold it, and so on. And you have 7 rows like this, and they need to pass things, these papers. Okay, and you need to have some items created at the end. You have the instructions. And this will show you very fast where is the bottleneck. And then the team can work together and try to find improvements to self-coordinate, to work together, and in the next round, try to be better. This is a game I typically use in workshops. What else? I'm going to put here also something else, which is not a game. The Agile Coach Camp. Okay. It's not a game, but it is full of games. This will happen in the weekend. Basically, here you just meet people, and you can learn from others. You will put yourself in, probably, if you go there, into an uncomfortable position, because people will most probably have different opinions, and this means you learn. People will probably come with some ideas of games you want to try out, and maybe it's not very comfortable to do that. Or you'll have discussions on topics you don't like. So, in the moment where you get outside of your comfort zone, learning happens. This is the purpose of all these games, and the Agile Coach Camp. And there is another thing, generic thing, which is called game storming. Have you heard about game storming? There's a book called Game Storming. Try to browse it. You can find there different games and things like that. I'll just mention some on the next chapter, which is called product development. So when you're a product developer, how can you improve your work? Okay, so you're not doing outsourcing, you're not doing, I don't know, other types of software. You're just creating products. So how can you improve your skills as a product developer without breaking the first 3 products? And here there's one game from Game Storming, which is called Product Box. Have you heard about this? It's very simple. You have an idea of a product, and you want to advertise it like it were a milk carton on a shelf. So you just take a box, and you want to advertise it and to put there the items you'd like to show to the customers, to the buyers. You want to draw it, to make nice writings and so on. And this would be your first idea. If you don't know how to make a box or a flyer for your product, probably you don't have the idea yet, so stop. And this isn't really a game, this is used in the product inception phase for any product. I've seen people use it, and it's very powerful. And it doesn't take that much time. Probably takes a couple of hours maximum if you want to do it again and again. Another thing I was using here is story mapping, but for imaginary product. Have you heard about story mapping? There is a book about it. It's called Story Mapping. This is written by Jeff Patton, and it's an old technique that comes from product development, maybe way before, well, it's not way before software, but it is influenced a lot by things non-software. Basically what you do is you want to map the steps of the user. This is why it's called story mapping. You want to have these steps of the user put in place. You use something like Post-its, you put them on the wall, and you say, okay, what would the user do to buy your stuff? well, he'll do that, and then he'll try it out, and then maybe he'll want to try a trial version, and maybe then they buy an account, and so on. And so you put all the steps, and then you go into details. If you do that for an imaginary product, you'll see if your idea is good enough, again. And you can show it to people. Look, this is my idea. Is this wall full of post-its? Okay? It's visual. It's really easy to get feedback on. Next thing. Programming. In programming, there are many ideas that come from martial arts, like Coding Dojo. Have you heard about Coding Dojo? No?
Yeah.
We have a meetup for it.
We have a meetup for it. It's called Coding Dojo. And Aline can tell you more about it. I'm hungry. Coding Dojo. The Coding Dojo is a concept that comes from martial arts. Have you practiced martial arts? Any of you? Okay, so you might know what that is better than me. As far as I know, the dojo is a place where the apprentices meet the master. And the master would show how things are done, okay, depending on the martial arts. Here the martial art is programming. So you pick a problem and you'd like to work in a group supported by someone who knows better. And here you put yourself into the uncomfortable position of saying out loud that you don't know. Okay? And this is where learning happens. Coding Dojo can happen. There's like a standard version that is just you do your work on your computer and someone comes again and again and tells you if you're going on the good path. There's another one called Randori, where you take turns on the projector, and each of the members of the group will write code on the projector, and everyone will see how they write code. Each one takes turns around 5 or 7 minutes. And there's another one, the Paris Dojo, which is a kind of a mix between them. Another concept is coding kata, again from martial arts. So you've been to the dojo here, the master taught you some stuff, and you want to try them out. Or you saw that you don't know some things, and you want to try them out. So what you do, you take that problem and you solve it again and again, and you delete the code each time.
Practice.
Yes, so that is really practice, 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 and the purpose is not to write something useful. The purpose is to understand how to use that technique. Like in Coding Dojo, someone showed you how to write unit tests.
Mr. Miyagi.
Yes, Mr. Miyagi. And what do? You're annoyed, and then maybe you will start applying it in production, and it won't work, right? No, the other way is try doing unit testing here during the kata. You, on your project, or on a small project, and delete the code, delete the tests, take half an hour, 15 minutes, 1 hour, as much as you want. I know people that do this each morning before they start working. So they take 15 to 30 minutes, that's 9 or 9:30, and they do this for months, each morning. Code retreat. Have you heard about code retreats? Yes, some of you. So the code retreat started with the idea that they want a full day of coding dojos. And you have 6 sessions of 45 minutes where you can pair with people, and you delete the code after each session. Each session has a clear constraint. And the constraints can be from very simple, like write code without conditionals, to very difficult, complicated constraints like do not try to map everything, try to have immutable code, try not to have variables, naked variables, try not to give state or show state, things like that that can be very difficult. Or for people that are very used to static languages, try only a functional language or functional style. And the other way around, if you're used to, let's say, function language, try object-oriented programming. So the purpose of the code retreat is to get you out of your comfort zone. And if you are tired after a code retreat, it means you learned. If you are a bit upset, annoyed, it means it was good. It means you learned something. It means you didn't do the things you're used to. So this is where learning comes from. Testing. In testing, there are basically the main thing, the same things. You can do testing dojos. You can do testing kata. And also, there is a format not very well known of test automation retreat. The test automation retreat is a play. It's like the same like a code retreat, a full day. But instead of writing code, you have these testing challenges that you need to solve in 45 minutes. Of course, you won't be able to solve them, in fact. But you can have different approaches. And you need to try to automate some tests, starting from the UI. I know this has been done only for web, but if someone could have time, they could improve it for something else as well. Do we have managers around here? Okay, this is for you. For management, there is a very nice thing called active listening. The idea is that I'm a person and I listen, okay? I may listen to you, but I don't know if I really understand what you're saying. I may be listening, but I don't want to ask questions, to clarify what you're saying. Maybe I'm thinking about how my dog is sick, or I'm thinking about how to get out of this meeting. Okay? Active listening means that you want to be 100% there in the conversation. But of course, there are some prerequisites. The conversation needs to be meaningful, and you want to be there, and it makes sense, and so on. This has a lot to do with nonviolent communication. And a lot to do with psychology. If you want, read more about this. There's another game that comes from game storming, and it's observation. If you're a manager or a Scrum Master or a project manager, I hope you will be able to observe things. And this game is very simple, but very difficult. Stay in a corner and note everything people are doing. Every gesture, the tone of their voice, if someone has a dialogue, how they felt, very small things, how they looked, how the eyes moved when something happened, the posture. If I'm staying like that, it means I'm interested in what you're saying. If I'm staying like that, I'm not. These are things from body language and so on. So observation means that you are able to see these things. You note them down, and then you can show them or tell them to the group, and the group will tell you, I wasn't feeling really like that, or yeah, you're right, but only partially. And in this way you can learn how to observe better, how to see better what things are, what is happening. Another thing, communication styles. You can be active or passive, but in the same time you can be aggressive, you can be passive, or a mixture of these. You can be passive aggressive, or you can really be out, so you don't care. You're locked out. So, what does this mean? How are you aggressive? Well, it depends a bit on the culture, of course. If you go to someone from Great Britain and you say, you must do that, that's aggressive. But probably if you go to someone from Eastern Europe and you say, you must do that, that's not, they don't feel it like aggressive. So there are things to take care about as well. And another one for management, lateral thinking. Have you heard about this? Of course. People go to game store. But so, lateral thinking means there are these games, these situations that are very simple. Someone explains you a context. And what you need to do is to give a solution, to say why is this happening. Lateral thinking means that you want to try to find innovative solutions. Solutions that are different than the usual way of thinking. And of course there is a book about it. And because you talked about estimations, I will tell you here two. It's one called non-cooperative and one called cooperative. In the non-cooperative game, what you do is you just pick people who will discuss, who will not discuss estimation. So the programmers will do theirs, testers will do theirs, operations will do theirs, and that's all, okay? In the cooperative, they become a team and then they discuss it, and they give feedback on their estimation. And it's useful because if you do the same game with the same problem, in this way and in this way, you'll see that this is a lot more effective. Okay, this was all from my side. I want to leave you only with one idea. With deliberate practice, you can become an expert faster. whenever you learn something, you can do it like this. Or if you really want to take time and practice, you probably will go like this. There are always 3 phases in learning. First one, you don't know a lot. First phase is when you start knowing well, and here you're an expert. So if you do this here, if you apply here deliberate practice, you will become better. You will become an expert faster. That was all, thank you.